And welcome back to episode 33 of The Hunt. Today, you're joined by Benny and Aiden. Mate, how you going?
Very good, mate. Yourself?
Good, mate.
Excellent.
It's pretty funny because we're both a bit a bit groggy, a bit sleepy. I stayed up and watched the Olympics as always the last 2 weeks.
Mate.
So I'm feeling a bit tired.
Yeah.
But as soon as we hit the,
Mate, as soon as that clap comes on, it's go time.
sit up.
Woo!
Sit up, boys. So today we're here to talk about, I guess, all things coaching, but more so from the lens of us being coaches. And hopefully if there are any other aspiring coaches out there that are looking to become a coach, we can hopefully steer them or help them steer themselves in the right direction, because we've got a lot of advice to give. And Benny, you actually came to me and you said, let's have a chat about this. So I guess what made you spark the motivation to want to have a discussion about this?
I think the thing that made me think about this is just some discussions I've been having with my athletes over the past maybe 2 weeks, and just things that my guys have seen from myself that they have started to either cement in themselves or just appreciate as values that I have, and then telling me about it. And it just kind of made me think about what it is to be a coach, and it's more than just writing programs and directing people through training. It's such a deeper concept than that, because you become this kind of mentor for so many people. And I think that sometimes as coaches ourselves, I'm sure that you as well as I forget that. We just kind of go along with our own things and stuff like that. And then just being reminded by people that the things that you're doing have this big impact.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing, and it kind of made me think it'd be a good topic of conversation for other people to either as coaches be reminded of this, or for athletes to be a bit more aware of it and just think, oh yeah, I do look up to this person in that way, or whatever.
Yeah, I think when you first came to me with the topic, and the thing that struck a chord with me was the fact that your own athlete came to you and told you, hey, you're making this impact on my life. And I think that's super, super nice.
Yeah.
Because, you don't really talk about that sort of stuff when you have a client. Most of it is obviously revolved around training. Mm-hmm. But when you get obviously I guess complimented, right? On your impact that you're making to them, I think it's really nice to hear.
Yeah, it's really flattering and humbling.
Yeah. And obviously you're doing good things. So I think that's what we're going to revolve this topic around, is we're going to dive more into how to make those good things happen.
Yep.
And this isn't a podcast or an episode. We're not going to, like you said at the start, we're not going to beat the dead horse about talking about ourselves.
Yep.
It's more so going to be a discussion around what other coaches can do to kind of have this impact on their own clients.
Yep.
Which we are so passionate about here at HPC. So I think for the raw individual, okay, I think we could just take anybody. How do you get into coaching? I try not use yourself as an example, because obviously we both come from very similar backgrounds where we change career direction. Yeah. But I guess as a person who wants to get into coaching, how do you make that start?
I think the most important thing to understand with coaching is just that the lifestyle and the way that people portray it over social media and what it looks like online or from an external point of view, it just looks like the fucking best thing ever, especially if you're into fitness and training. And this isn't just applicable to powerlifting coaches, this is any type of coach. If you have a passion in any sport, whether it's athletics, bodybuilding, powerlifting, weightlifting, anything like that, and you have this lifestyle that has then become with that sport such a core foundation of your lifestyle, it's obviously going to be so appealing to do that as your full-time profession as well. But there are a lot of beneath the surface kind of considerations that I think people should take into account before they decide to make the plunge, because I think that's why people fall off so much, is because they don't think about this before they do it. They just think, man, this looks awesome. This is going to be great. I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to make it work. And then they either lack the ability to make it happen, or the opportunities, I suppose, as well.
Or even those core values, being a good, personable person.
Yeah,
literally. Having those relationships that, people always say, you shouldn't be friends with your coach.
Yep.
But unfortunately, if you don't have those friendship qualities with your coach, you're not going to have a long-term relationship with them. You know what I mean? I have a professional relationship with my accountant, for example.
Yep.
And it's purely professional. We talk every quarter because of Baz's time, whatever.
Yep.
but it's not like we're going to the pub having a beer.
Yep.
We talk strictly business. And I think, you know, when it comes down to it, if you want to actually try and have a personal relationship with your accountant,
Yep.
like he's going to probably try and reach out and try and contact you more and more often. But as a coach, because you have that daily communication, it's going to be more deeper than, you know, the relationship you have with your accountant.
Yeah.
So I think you really like struck a chord there where it comes down to like, if you want to make sure that you're having a long-term lasting relationship with your clients, you need to be a personable person on a deeper level than just the accountant.
And I think like expanding on that as well is like the difference between like your accountant example and like something that someone does for sport is no one really gives a fuck about their tax until they get their money back.
Yeah.
Whereas like sport and something that you pour your heart and soul into and put so much effort into to get an outcome, it becomes very, very emotional. And I think that you need to be personable so that you have like empathy for this person when they're going through hard stuff. You have the time to communicate with them about like whatever's going on and impacting like their outcomes. But beyond that, I think like there's a lot of things and a lot of sacrifices you have to make when you decide to make this like your full-time profession, because it's so different to anything that anyone else does really.
Yeah.
It's
kind of before, mate. It was not a job for anybody. Fucking pre 2017, really. You know what I mean? Like a full time job.
Yeah. So it's like it's one of those things where you've got to consider like your lifestyle is going to change drastically, because like your work hours are going to be so different to basically everyone else's that works a normal 9 to 5, because everyone who wants to do training or fitness or sport is doing it out of work hours. So then you're working when they're not, and when they're working, you're off. Like, you know, so that's a big factor, like thinking about, you know, getting set up and the commitment you're going to have to make financially probably for like the first like 1 to 2 years to like get off the ground in that space, because like building reputation as a coach is super important. So trying to think about whether, you know, you're going to have to remain in your job while you try to get it off the ground, or whether you're just going to say, fuck it, I'm going all in and just like quit what you're doing, get into it, and then just push as hard as you can to get it off the ground as quick as you can. And then, like obviously just understanding that the routes of progression aren't cemented in the real world. Like they're not something that, you know, you're going to go to uni and get a degree and then get a job and employed by someone. Like you might be working for yourself, you might be working for a business. What type of opportunities do you have at your disposal there? Like try not to use ourselves, but using myself as an example, I obviously had like HPC at my disposal when I was getting into it, whereas it would have been a lot different if I was like out on my own doing like soul trading.
And I think that's the biggest difference is like, if you don't have, I guess, like a Cert 3 or 4 or like accreditation of some sort in strength conditioning or a degree, then like you have to realize that the market are not really going to be looking at those things when you do eventually publicize yourself and you go all in, or you keep that secondary job to support the thing that you're trying to become long term. The biggest thing that I had noticed with like the market when it comes to like making more clients and stuff like that, and what they're looking for is simply just like your reputation, as you already said, but your results as well. And the thing is that the people who last and stay at the top the longest are the ones who are consistently like are at the top because they are good at what they do, not only just in like the product but the service as well. And word of mouth travels like way faster than any Instagram post you can like make that's going to look fancy and nice. Because unfortunately, like the posts that you're making for the majority of the coaches out there that want to become like a better coach or make more money and get more clients and like put themselves out there because they think that's the only way to do it. You have to spend time that is money out of your pocket sitting down writing that content, when if you're just a better coach creating the product that you're making, your clients can be doing that work for you by telling their best mate, their work colleague, their I know, mum, dad, dog, whatever, you know what I mean? So I think like understanding that it's not really about the accreditations that you have. Like you need to be insurable, but that's the bottom line. Like as soon as you have your insurance, like you literally like the world is your oyster about how far you can go within the progression scheme of things.
And like I think on that topic as well, it's like we kind of touched on it before, where it's like being personable and like, you know, understanding that like, just I suppose understanding just that coaching is going to be a lot different to what you do for your sport. And just because you love your sport, it doesn't mean that you're going to love coaching your sport.
Yep.
It's very, very different. And I think just getting some kind of exposure to that and to what that would be like, talking to people in that space about their experiences and the positives and the negatives and all of that. Because if it is something that you end up really loving and really wanting to do, like, you are going to put in that 110% to make it happen. And over time, that effort is just going to pay off. Like, there's no chance that it won't, because you're just going to keep like building that snowball momentum in your business, and that's just going to sustain itself in the long term.
Yeah, the biggest thing when it comes to putting everything into it, like, you see so many coaches get employed by like these businesses, right? And they're no longer a sole trader anymore. They're working for the business. And then I can guarantee within like 6 to 12 months, their roster is pretty much full. If you are on your own, like, it is very hard to fill your roster. I can almost guarantee that every single sole trading coach in Australia does not have a full roster. Like, they're not full time. They're always taking on people always leaving. Their turnover rate is probably like quite high. But if you're under these like companies or these institutions, and this is probably a bit of a hot take, like, I believe that like that is the way forward if you do want to try and actually like become very, very successful in the sport as a coach.
Yeah.
Because like you're with an army, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if like you under here, for example, and try not to use us as an example, as we already said, but like, we are in a position now where like we can support each other when you're having trouble, problem solving an athlete. Like, you can bounce ideas off 6 of us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on your own, like, you only have yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can't figure something out, you're wasting the time of that athlete, and that athlete has probably got half their foot out the door anyway, because you can't figure out the thing that's not making them stronger.
Yeah.
And then second to that, like, if you are trying to figure that thing out, you probably need to be paying for mentoring or an internship of some sort.
Yeah.
So that person can then help you figure it out because you're paying for their time.
Yeah.
But then there's this problem of like, imposter syndrome, where they don't want to like look like they're asking for help when they particularly need it.
Yeah.
And that's probably like one of the biggest things is like sole training coaches, that they do struggle to sign up for that, internship or get that mentorship or talk more about like to other people in the industry that have been in the industry longer and have had more success. So I think like trying to just accept the fact that, okay, if you're new in the industry, you're not going to be like at the top of the game for years to come.
Yeah.
Like, you literally, the only way you're going to get there is if you have the support of everyone else around you in the networking community of coaching.
Yeah.
Within powerlifting, within PT, I guess you could also throw in there as well. Like, as long as like you're like communicating with those people, like, a rising tide raises all the boats together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the best analogy I can think of.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think just don't be a dick. Get on with people.
Don't be a dick. Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Get on with people.
Not being a fucking wanker.
Yeah. I think like Aiden was saying about, being a part of a business as well. It kind of like as a sole trader, like, you can start to connect with other sole traders and build like your own little team where you support each other.
Yeah.
And, but you're always going to be in competition. And so
That's
it's always a little bit different.
You're competing with each other then?
Yeah. And like there's that, like, understanding that there's food at the table for everyone. Like, it's okay. Like, that's getting over that barrier where it's like you don't have to be competing against everyone all the time. But I think the biggest thing about like being a part of like a business or a brand as well is like, it's like anything, any work, any career that you're going to do is going to have like peaks and troughs in whether it's like your motivation to do it, whether it's like your, I don't know, like just the wave of like interest that like the community has in you. And that's just going to be more constant when you're part of a brand, because like if like, 5 out of 6 coaches on a roster of a brand are up, like the brand is still relevant.
Yep.
Whereas if you're on your own and you just have like, you're going through a tough time, whether that's because of your personal life or whether that's because of your athlete life or just because of like business being really hard. If you kind of like fall into the shadow and become less relevant, it's kind of hard to like propel yourself back into the forefront. Whereas if you're a part of a brand that's like always got people that individuals in the community are talking about, like, you're always going to be relevant because you're a part of something there.
Yeah. Like as a consumer, you're getting hit from every fucking angle. You can't avoid it. You know what I mean? You open your phone, one employee is posting something, another employee is posting something, another podcast is posted. Like a coach who coaches people is like hitting PRs. You know what I mean? Like they're representing that brand like with such, I guess, like high frequency that like you can't avoid it, and eventually like the consumer just can't say no. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's very hard to do that as a singular person.
Yeah, because their buy-in to the brand is then what's bringing them to that, and you can build your own brand and kind of like excel in that kind of space, but it just becomes easier with people around you. And I think in a space where like security in your job role or in your income or these types of things, where that's always like a concern for people. I think trying to like mitigate that as much as you can just makes it a more sustainable career path.
Which is the scariest part about the job.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Like trying to explain to a business bank, like when you want to get a loan and they tell you, you know, like what's stopping your clients from fucking leaving, like, you know, next week because of COVID or because of something like that could happen. Like that's a genuine like consideration for businesses to make. And unfortunately, if you're not in the business, and this is probably our next talking topic, for years, and you have like, you know, the company like HPC has been established for 4 years now. We've got like 4 years of like annual like profit and loss reports, balance sheets, asset like holdings, and everything you can think of that like makes up what this company is worth. We've got that data now to provide to banks, and before you know it, like we're getting accepted for leveraging against buying like more things like to propel the business forward, and you need that. And if you're a new coach and like you are expecting like to just like launch into the industry and be able to, you know, propel yourself using like the support of loans, for example, or the support of people around you, or investors or shareholders or anything like that. Other businesses wanting to like leverage off you. For example, I've got a cafe that works downstairs. Like they pay me rent because the business has people coming through it. Therefore, they can sell coffees. Across the mezzanine, we've got obviously rooms that are going to be made for people to pay rent so they can treat people for physio, EP, massage, whatever it may be, because they can leverage off the business. You know what I mean? And to get to that point, like, you need to be like getting more skin in the game, and obviously like understand that like when you're very first starting out, it is a definite reality that everyone can leave you in a matter of a week. And we've had hard weeks together where like, I don't know, out of fucking nowhere, like 10 people will leave at once, and and they're all completely
unrelated,
different
people
reasons.
who potentially don't even know each other.
Exactly.
It just happens, and it comes in waves, and that's the thing. And I think like setting yourself up so that you have like, I think like one of the most valuable things on that topic is like considering your roster in like sections of like solidified athletes who are like the likelihood of them leaving, especially off the cuff, is like less than 5%. And then like having like, I don't want to call them like your flaky roster, but like your less reliable roster when it comes to like tracking your income and just being like, okay, so I have like plus or minus 5 here. And then I have like 30 locked in. And it's like, just think of it in that sense.
That's such a good piece of advice. Like if you need peace of mind and you have this one service, right, where like everybody receives the 24/7 communication, they get their program once a week, you reply to them like daily as part of that. And like you're being reactive to your programming, you're doing all this and that. Like I can explain a very similar scenario. I've got like a certain percentage of people who like my ride or die. They got my back. Like they will never leave me because they fucking love the business. They love me.
Love all of it.
They love it. You know what I mean? And then you've
fucking love it.
They fucking love it. And then like you said, the second third of it would kind of be like the people who, I guess like they don't really send much through to you, and they half fill out their program, and like it kind of makes you feel like that like you're not giving them the full like value of the service. So like you may message them and like follow them up like more than like the people who are fully bought in, because they're always sending you shit. They're always filling out the program. They're always asking you questions. You know what I mean? And then you got like the the bottom feeders down like at the bottom where like they don't do shit. They don't send you programs. Spreadsheet. Fuck me. They don't send you videos. They don't fill out their sheets. They like you're following them up to send them stuff like, and you're trying to like keep them there by doing everything you can. So in saying that example, Like your service needs to be catered towards that individual based on that like categorized system. So if the person who isn't like, playing their part on the quote unquote athlete contract and they're not following up on like videos and filling out their sheets and shit, like you actually need to be like chasing them up as your responsibility as a coach to keep them on, to make them feel like they're included or involved in the service that they're paying for. Especially if you're charging a premium price.
Oh, 100%.
But not saying you got to ignore the cunts at the top. Like you definitely like, want to still make sure that
you just need to prod the people who are like less bought into it right now to try and like create that again, like momentum of them getting more bought into it.
And sometimes it's not a matter of like you, being annoying and like, ignoring the ones at the top. Like you just have to always make sure that they are communicating to you how they want their service.
Yeah.
And it's normal to do surveys. It's normal to like be assessed on like a regular level. I know you've got a group chat with all your athletes and like you're always like talking in that conversation around Benny's baddies about like, hey guys, this comp's coming up. Like, let me know if you want to do it. Yep. Just like this if you're here. And then like them just like sending a simple double tap is enough for you to know that they're still in, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like group setting conversations are fantastic for that.
Yeah, for sure. And like you can get more and more in depth for this for like the coach who wants to be very, very secure in their like income and like how they can support themselves. And you can literally like use like a spreadsheet to create like an analysis of this like solidified roster, and then the more like what's the word, like non-reliable type section of your roster, and you could literally like create an average of like losses that you have over the course of a month, and then average that down to like your average earnings over a period of time, and then you can base your projections on that. And that's how I think that's like the key, is just understanding like how you can structure something so it gives you tangible goals to improve on, whether that's like gain one client per week, one client per fortnight.
Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel is really important.
So important.
When I went to get my loan approval with like a business bank, one of the requirements, because I was a first business owner applying for a loan, one of the things they made me do was were these courses, and I had to write like a full analysis of like my business plan. And it was like a 50-page document, and all it had was just like questions. And the bank pretty much sits down and goes through it. But like the cool thing is with the bank that I applied through, they supplied like feedback on like the questions that were, the answers I was doing towards these questions. And one of the things was like, forecasting and like based off like your current yearly revenue or whatever it may be. And I was like looking at the numbers and looking at the percentage growth per year. And then when you're looking at it per year, like that makes you feel really confident about the product you're supplying once you're in that second, third year of coaching and you are trending towards that more full-time role. But the biggest thing is that like you need to understand what your weaknesses are towards obviously where you are right now, and then that's how you continue that like percentage growth moving forward. And we talk about SWOT analysis tests and all that sort of stuff, and people roll their eyes when they hear about SWOT analysis, but like it's super important to understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your objectives are, what your threats are. And because a lot of those things are going to tie into like the end product that you want to be able to supply as a coach. And moving forward, if you don't know what those things are, then you kind of like, you don't know specifically like what value you hold as a coach or what threats there are to you. And that's hard to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And just identifying these things and understanding that like you can create solid objectives to ensure that you're succeeding and getting better, and like setting yourself almost KPIs for performance.
Pretty much,
because like without that, you feel very lost. And when you feel lost, it's a really shit place to be, because you're going to be kind of just in this like no man's land where you just feel like you're working so hard and essentially not getting anywhere because you're not like celebrating and reflecting upon like your improvement and your wins when they are there, because you're so fixated on like, once I get to this end goal, then I'll be good. And that end goal always changes. It doesn't matter like where you are, like it's just like powerlifting. As soon as you fucking hit this PR, you're thinking about the next one and the next one. And that's just what it's like. So trying to make it as tangible as possible. And just, trying to figure those things out that you can do to make that happen.
Yeah, like one of the next topics I want to talk about is like making a real good impact as a coach, like, and what things people can do out there that are going to like launch them forward, like as a coach in their career.
Yeah.
I think like we've already touched on, like being able to network well is super important.
Yep.
And you already said, like, you know, some sole traders we have seen in the past and currently still see, like they work well with each other.
Yeah.
To kind of like lift each other up and understand that there's plenty of food at the table for everyone to fucking, you know,
Yep.
have a piece of the pie.
Yep.
But the main thing is that when it comes to making an impact, like the thing that people want to see, like as a client, and I think this is like a really important thing, is that they want to just see a good person.
Yeah. Someone who cares, bro.
Someone who cares, someone who like is able to like ask their friend and be like, oh, what are your thoughts on this person as a coach? And they have nothing but like good raps, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And they can ask a lot of people, and then like similar to the thing I said before about word of mouth and how that's like free work for you.
Yep.
Like that impact that you have on people's lives where they talk nothing but good about you is like invaluable. Like it is the best thing you can have.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think this kind of leads into like what making an impact is, and like more of the, I suppose, like non-business related like variant of that like becomes, right? So it's like we've just spoke about so much of these things that, you know, you could probably perceive as like hardships within like the coaching space, but like if you want to become a coach and you do love it and you enjoy it and you want to make an impact, then fucking do it, because it is like one of the most rewarding things that you can do.
100%.
And it just gets to the point there where, like, you know, you seeing your athletes and your team succeed becomes greater than your own success. Like, you know what I mean? And that just comes back to like the luxury and the privilege of making an impact on someone else's life, taking them from like point A to point B. And I think like it's one of the most like surreal, like euphoric things that you can experience when like you have something that you love so much, which for us is powerlifting.
Yeah.
And you know how hard it is to do and how it feels to like go through the trenches and then like get to the, like your end goal.
Yep.
And taking someone through like the ebbs and flows of that is just like phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it just becomes like one of the best things that you can do.
This is fucking probably a bit heartfelt, right?
Yep.
But like when I hear you talk about like that sort of like feeling that you're looking for because of the value that you provide in your service, and it's like a unexplainable feeling that you have at the end result when, you know, your lifter PRs or like they lift pain free or they, you know, eventually become national champion. And I know you've already coached a national champion in the form of Kerry Smith, shout out Kez.
Yep.
But like the day that you are able to obviously like put together a result where your own open lifter qualifies and goes to open worlds, and like I am sitting there and watching you do that, like I'm going to be so fucking emotional.
Yeah.
Like I'm nearly fucking crying.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like to like, you know, I obviously like I'm the only one that's actually been to open worlds under HPC, and I've seen how hard it takes to get to that point as an athlete, as a coach, and it's really fucking hard because like it takes years and years of hard work and obviously like determination to get to that point. But to see kind of like your own quote unquote like employee to be able to get to that point and experience what you've experienced. And you know, the hardest thing as a business owner is that people always think HPC is like Aiden Potts, but it's starting to trend the other way where it's not Aiden Potts. It's HPC is HPC. The brand is what it is. It's the values that we hold. And I think that's something that like I'm so passionate about, and I'm trying so hard to work towards to be able to get to that point where people do see us as those values and as like the product that we do have. And when the time comes when you do eventually have that, you know, that win where like you have worked so hard to get yourself or your own athletes to that end result, like I'm going to fucking lose it.
Yeah.
Because like, it's just like seeing your own kid fucking like, you know, win a soccer match or some shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I'm going to be sitting there just thinking like, holy fuck, I'm so fucking proud of this cunt.
Yeah.
But like, until that time comes, like the most important, and this is what I mean, like when you're a business, like you are so invested in each other that like it not just motivates them, but it kind of like you want everyone to win, like in your team. You know what I mean? Like you want if you're in a company and you're a coach on that company, like you aren't on your own. And I think that's where like you have that massive fucking leap forward where like you fill your roster fast because like you're representing the values of that person or that brand. And you are able to obviously like be supported by so many people that like you can just like you don't have imposter syndrome anymore.
Yeah.
Like you just like we get messages all the time in the staff chat like, hey, how does this post look? Fucking good, post it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like or like we give feedback, like or maybe mention this or touch on that, and like we are critical about that. But that's what I think is making it so unique and valuable to the market. So yeah, that's I think a really important impact to make.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to like the values side of things, you got to figure that out. Obviously, once you've done like the SWOT analysis and you've done, I guess like your business plan and like your forecasting and you know knowing where like what sort of direction you want to head, like you need to carry these values that stand with you for the entire time. Yeah. And you know, our values are like excellence, integrity, community. I can't even fucking remember the last two. Do you remember them?
I don't know. They're on the board.
They're on the wall right behind me somewhere, but it's a see-through mesh fucking thing. Yeah. Anyway, that's 3 of the 5, but they're good, you know. Yeah. And a lot of the clients that we have resemble that or reflect that. And very, very fast, if you don't hold those values, we've had experiences in the past, you don't last long in this gym or this business. And we're pretty quick to identify that. And we speak about it a lot. Like when we have a client leave, we kind of talk about it because it doesn't happen very often. But when they do, it's quite big because we're like, holy fuck, like, you know, our retention rate is really, really good. Yeah. Like
the people we have on become like a family under this like umbrella, you know what I mean? So it's a big deal. It's not just like losing like, you know, just like losing a client. Like it's like losing like a mate and that type of thing. Not necessarily that it's like that, like with every encounter, but it's like, obviously, if you're seeing that person less and stuff like that, it changes the dynamic. And
we have a thing where it's like, okay, a client signs on, they either last 8 weeks, or they last forever. And then like if they do stop, it's because of fucking like crazy reasons. You know what I mean? And when we do lose that part of the family in regards to a client, we sit down, we analyze, and we go over like, you know, why did this happen? Yeah. And I think as a business, like we talk about it and we're kind of like, why did this person leave? We critically analyze like the things that we could have done better. But sometimes like it's just completely out of your control and there's nothing you can fucking do. Yeah. And learning how to let go is like really hard because when you truly care so much about like your athletes and you put everything into it, no matter if it's like problem solving or like putting up with them being in pain and feeling their pain and trying to negate that. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just trying to make sure that like you are taking care of yourself in that sense when, you know, the person that you cared so much for does leave. And at the end of the day, it is a business transaction. Yeah. Like they pay you to get a program and a service and that's all it simply is. Yep. And that's how you should look at it. Yep. So I think that's a super important thing to understand. Like people are in this to get strong and pay for you to give them a thing that makes them strong. Yep. So don't get too attached emotionally to that thing. Yeah. Yeah. That's totally fair. And like on the topic of values and everything, it's kind of like the way that I was like thinking about this topic of discussion as well. And like this was literally what like sparked my interest to have this whole conversation around it is like when you are a coach and like you're looking at it from like a more individual aspect, like your values and like morals as like an individual are what is gonna mold you as a coach, and therefore what is gonna mold like your athletes as well. Like, you know what I mean? So like the person that you are, that's why people are with you. You know what I mean? Because like there's like thousands of good coaches in the world, right? Yeah. But your roster has chose you. Yeah. And it's like understanding that like they chose you because of who you are, not necessarily what you know or like, you know, how the program spreadsheet that you give, like it's who you are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you like the hardest worker, like the most empathetic coach, like the person who's like the most resilient, like you're never giving up. Yeah, people don't go to you for the product, they go for you for the service. Literally, yeah. Like that's the difference. Exactly. Like, if everybody just wanted a product, like a good program, just go to Juggernaut Training Systems and buy one of the AI printed programs. Like, but if you want like, you know, that thing that you just described, like you obviously need the service.
Yep.
And that's where you need like the coach that has all those values that you spoke about.
Yep.
And is like quote unquote leading from the front as well.
Yep.
I think like when it comes to like being able to obviously lead from the front, it's not a matter of like you creating results or like I guess like being able to probably like just like have your athletes like talk about like how good of a service you provide. It's more like just if you're able to just support everybody around you, like even if they're not on your roster or even if like they're not, I guess like in the same country as you or like in the same community, like as long as like you're just supporting each other and you make out yourself to be a good guy or a good girl. That sounds really bad, but you just make yourself out to be a good person.
Yep.
People are going to see that. And people are going to like attach that kindness to like your brand. And then that's what like, I guess like establishes that flooring of like what makes a good coach is just being a good person.
Yep.
Because that's all we look for really.
Yep.
Like when we have a new like coach on the scene that we have never seen before and they attend nationals or like they attend, I don't know, like a local meet and you've never seen them before. And like that, you want to try and obviously like know who they are, and the first instinct that you meet of them is like, fuck, that person's like, he's a good person, like, he's pretty nice, like, did you meet him? And we talk about it, you know what I mean? Or like, you definitely know the ones that are see you next Tuesdays. You know what I mean? Like they stand out pretty well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like we've had instances like where I think we'll both at a meet at City Strength. It was only like at the start of this year or like, was it last year? And you go to a PA meet.
Oh.
And I was at City Strength, and you were there for the morning session because you had an athlete, and I think I was refereeing. Yeah. And you go to me, mate, you will not believe the fucking cats I was meeting at this meet.
Singular.
But like,
not multiple.
Yeah. It feels pretty funny because if any of the listeners are listening and they've been in powerlifting long enough, they probably know who I am when I mention PA or who I'm talking about. Sorry. But like. Man, that's what I mean. Like,
it was crazy.
That's like those like first interactions. Like he didn't know you for a bar of soap.
No.
And I was just like, holy fuck, I can't believe he acted like that or how he said that to you. Like that's terrible.
Yeah. Crazy.
But you now have a reflection of him, and if anyone asks you what you thought of this person, you're probably going to say,
quick. "See you next Tuesday." Yeah.
So yeah, it's important just to be a fucking good person at a meet. Don't act like a fucking hard cunt. For no reason.
100%. And like touching on like leading from the front when you are the coach, like when you're that person, I think especially when you're dealing with like athletes who want to be high achievers, like this is by no means saying that like the coach has to train and be an athlete. It helps a lot, but as long as they're very driven in what they do and it's very evident, then like that's going to be a motivator for the roster that they have beneath them.
It's going to rub off.
And it just trickles down. Like being a face-to-face coach, like I've definitely seen it like in the flesh before where it's like if you have a day where you have a poor reaction in the gym because something didn't go your way. As an athlete, you can count on the fact that if your athletes are around you and you watch them train for the next 2 hours, they're going to be in a shit mood as well.
I fucking actually remember having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, like when I was like, I was in the trenches so fucking injured, man. And like, I was like in like the darkest place of like my athlete career. And it was so hard. And one day, like I just had like, I don't know, like I flipped out in the gym type of thing. Like, you know, I just had like an emotional response to what was happening. And I think it was like I hurt myself again, and then I couldn't deadlift after my squats, and then I had to go and like just finish off my bench and everything. And it's just like, you know, I had a tantrum about it. And then like Aiden mentioned to me afterwards, he's like, dude, like I totally get that you're like really emotional about the outcome that's happened right now, but like you need to understand. And this is when I was first starting. He said like, you need to understand that like you're now a figure that people look up to in here, and the actions that you put forward are going to be reciprocated by the people in here because they're following you now.
Yep.
And that's kind of where it came from. And ever since then, that's been something that's at the forefront of my mind as an athlete, because I know that I have a greater responsibility than just responding to things based on how I feel about them now. And that's literally like it's a full circle moment, because when I got the idea for this podcast, it was because like last week I had like a pretty bittersweet ending to my training block, and I PR'd on my squat in top set and like top single and reps. And then I missed my potential deadlift PR, and then I missed my potential bench PR, right? And it was like, as that week was unfolding, like the things were happening, and I was just like, you know, this is okay. Like, this is part of it. And like, I responded like with a lot of maturity as like for myself as an athlete. And then I had literally people like coming up to me like within the next like few days, like talking about like that, you know, like they really look up to like my resilience, like, you know what I mean? And they appreciate like how I am, and it makes them want to strive to be better in themselves.
The funny thing is, right, like by you doing these things in regards to like, you know, failing and them watching you handle yourself and understanding like what you do is going to be a reciprocation of like what they do. You are like jumping years ahead as an athlete by just being a coach.
Yep.
And like knowing that your actions make a drastic impact on the ones around you, especially your own clients. Mm-hmm. So like for them to see that in front of them, like you are also helping them to jump years ahead of themselves too, which is fucking hard to do. Like failing in the gym in front of everyone is like one of the hardest things to do.
Yep.
But when understandably, like in a sport where like you're literally trying to, you know, push the limits and like get strong, like you actually like will experience like failures multiple times in your career.
Yep.
But how you bounce back from that like is something that is a skill, and it's really hard. And for you, it was the fact that you're now a coach, you now have a responsibility, and you now obviously like have the weight of shoulders of many other people in this gym and obviously online, and the way you present yourself online, carrying yourself as an athlete is going to be a reflection of the things that people want to be around. So I think, and this is probably like when it touches on like when I decided to go back and do the Gumption series, like I really wanted to make sure that like it was me being an athlete talking. And then that's no different to me being a coach as well. Like I'm not trying to be, you don't want to be anyone different, because it's tiring and it's fake. And we see similarly to these athletes or these athletes that become coaches in an early stage, they don't last very long because they're not being themselves. You can think of it like a fucking TikTok trend. You know what I mean? People love influencers on Instagram or TikTok when they have a personality and they're being themselves and they're just like funny. Think about the Hawk Tur girl. You know what I mean? Like people just like her because she's just bogan southern as fuck and she's funny as and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and she just said this one line that just blew up because she was just being herself. You know what I mean? Like if you are trying to like not be yourself, then you're very quickly going to realize that like, I'm now coaching the people that love the person that I'm not. And I can't do this any longer because it's too hard. And then that's where they fall off the face of the earth after like, you know, 6 months to 12 months of coaching. And you don't hear from them ever again.
For sure. And that's like, literally like leaning into the things that you're naturally like, that naturally are you as a person, like what you are. Like, I know that like me being resilient is something that like I have just based on everything that I've ever done. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just too stubborn to give up at things. And that's probably why I picked powerlifting as a sport. So like, literally just leaning into the things that you're naturally like inclined to do. And the, like coming back to full circle to the values that you hold as a person, and then making that reflect in, you know, how you carry yourself as an athlete and a coach. And that's going to motivate your roster to do that, and then that's going to pull more people who resonate with you on that level to then be your athlete. You know what I mean? It's like you see people who get coached by like these athletes who are just absolute fucking dogs. They're probably fucking dogs. Like, you know what I mean? People who are like more empathetic or like need someone to like get them through to like never give up are going to be coached by someone who's probably been through fuck tons of hardship in their athletic career. Like, you know, people who just want to have fun are going to be coached by someone who has fun.
Literally.
That's just how it works.
I agree. No, well, I guess the last point we'll make, because obviously coaching is hard on your life, mate, because, you know, like you said before, when people are working, you're probably not working. When people aren't working, you are probably working. And it demands a lot, because if you're at the bottom, you're working hard to like obviously go to novice comps frequently. You're probably posting a lot. You're probably like networking a lot. At the top, you're probably like traveling a lot for competitions overseas, interstate, whatever it may be. You're probably like managing a larger roster, and like you have more of an individualized approach to, I guess, like the roster that you do have. So how do you create that lifestyle balance? I think is like really important to highlight. And I know you're really big on like making sure you have a good balance.
Yep.
This is probably why I'm a business owner. I probably don't have a good balance.
Yep.
Because I just can't stop.
Yep.
But I guess like from the standpoint, like you've seen how I work and you've seen how like the distances I go to, like I can probably openly say like on like a Sunday or a Saturday, I'll send you like a bunch of leads and you'd be like, mate, what?
Yeah, well,
let me. I'll work this on Monday, and I'm just like 7 days a week. Fuck it, you know what I mean. So I guess 100%. Like, how do you not fall into like the role of what I do? Like, how do you kind of like create that balance?
Yeah. So I think for a bit of context, like the background as to why I think that way is because of like my experience in past work roles where I've become like super burnt out, and like I know myself, and if I get into that state, like I'm either going to be not as productive or I'm going to fucking hate what I'm doing. And I don't want to get to that ever again. And yeah, so like, obviously, like if you love what you do, you're going to have an inclination to do it all the time, right? Yeah. And that's just the nature of what we do because it's just nonstop. And, you know, you're going to have athletes who basically train like 6 or 5 or whatever, however many days a week. And, you know, so they're going to be messaging you on a Saturday and blah, 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 or maybe even a Sunday, and you're going to be wanting to get back to them because it's, you know, what you do and you enjoy it and whatever. But I think my inclination to like really set like a work-life balance probably comes from the fact that like I've noticed it directly like impact my presence when I'm in social situations with like my partner or my family or my friends and stuff like that. So it's like I really need to like set boundaries for myself or I will fall into the trap of like not stopping. And it'll affect like my outside life directly. And I think recognizing that was like really important for me. And so when it comes back to like actually applying more of a work-life balance, just setting boundaries for yourself and making sure that your clients are aware of the boundaries that you have at play. And like, as long as your clients are aware of like what's like of the boundaries that you have, like they're going to be okay with
That's
them.
it, yeah.
As long as you're not being a fucking lazy cunt and taking the piss. Which like, that's a whole different topic.
Yep.
But setting boundaries from saying like, I don't know, I saw like a really good post about this the other day, and it was essentially elaborating on the fact that like clients want a high quality like response or product from you. And it's like, if you're constantly spinning your wheels to just like flat out give like responses all the time, the quality of your response is going to diminish.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas if you go to them like, all right, like, so on a weekend, like from Saturday midday until like, you know, Monday when people are back training, like I have way less time on my phone and I don't really like go through and like get back to client messages unless it's something really pressing, or if you've got like some kind of high priority session on the Saturday, that kind of thing. And depending on what your business model looks like, whether you can implement that. But outlining that to them is then going to allow you on the Monday to come back into the office and be like, all right, sick, I'm ready to get back into it. I'm going to give heaps of high quality feedback to all of these people, as opposed to just like spinning your wheels like Saturday night, Sunday night, and like just kind of like while you're at social gatherings or like trying to enjoy like your personal time, just being like giving like shorter answers, more like direct things that maybe they don't understand, you know, a lesser service in itself. So understanding like that there's two ends to it, you know what I mean? Like you can obviously have drawbacks from that, but then your service can as well. If you spin the wheels too hard.
Yeah, spinning wheels is like a massive fallback for so many coaches. Like, and we've experienced it, and you have to experience it to actually know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like one of the best examples I can think of is like if you have this service and you're presenting the service or providing the service at its fucking full potential, like you're applying during their sessions and you're like over delivering feedback and like you're over queuing things and like you're overthinking the program through reactive like approaches where like you know, you look past like the lifestyle influence that could affect that session, and you're thinking, fuck, is it the program? Is it the priming session? Is it the amount of volume they're doing? Are they doing too many accessories? Like, you know, like there are so many things that like your service has the ability to do, but if you over deliver that service and then it begins to work, and then you realize like, fuck, what do I have to do now, like to keep keep the thing involved so the athlete feels like they're getting something. That's when the athlete realizes, fuck, like I'm not getting the same service I got like right at the start, or not getting the same service like a few months ago, you know what I mean? Or they just finished a comp, for example. And like they're in this like off-season period where like you've tapered, you removed all fatigue, you need to build that fatigue back up. Training's going to be fucking hard. You're not going to feel strong. And then the athlete is like complaining about the fact that like you're not getting back to them because you as a coach realize, okay, this athlete's in a peak. I have to be reactive to their individual sessions of how they leak into each other's session, because they do communicate with each other on a fatigue basis. But also like, if you're in an off season and you're doing a top set of 4 at RPE 6 to 7 with like 3x10 afterwards, like you're probably not going to get the attention to detail that you have because A, it's probably super sub max. B, you're probably nailing the technique because it is so sub max. And C, like you just need to get the fucking work done. And you're not going to get like as much feedback as what you would have with something that's going to be as challenging as like a top single at 8 or something like that. And unfortunately, a lot of athletes, particularly juniors, will like take that the wrong way, and they will think that they're not getting the thing that they paid for, the thing they originally had in the first place. And then that's when they fall off, and then that's when they want to go to the new flashy thing. And you could talk about like the grass is greener analogy here in that example. But like we experienced that, we know that, but we're at the point now with our service where it's like, okay, we have a new athlete that starts. When they start, we just keep things like not minimal, but we just focus on like maybe 2 things per lift for 1 block, and that's the only thing we're thinking about. And I'm telling them, like, for example, Caleb, who's you coach her mum, his mum, sorry. I coach his son now, Caleb.
Oh yeah,
up in Cairns.
Yep.
And I told him, mate, I was like, okay, this block we're going to bench with our bum up every single bench session because you cannot keep your legs on, and we're going to focus on just like setting your hands, your neck, and your legs when you do your setup. Like they're the only 2 things we're going to work on. Still not getting the hang of it, but it is getting better. But so many coaches would say those 2 things, and like they would like sit there and fucking be like, oh shit, like I haven't said like a new QE or like a new thing to work on like in like a week now. They throw another thing in and another thing, and before you know it, the block's ended. He's made a few fucking gains, but it's probably only because he's got a better program. But like as an athlete that's like creating longevity in the sport and like actually like, you know, setting themselves up, like you've probably just fucking literally blew your load, you know what I mean? You know, and then and they fucking leave you.
Literally, I thought of this analogy the other day, right, where it's like, you know, less is more, in the sense where it's like, if you can imagine, like, right, get this, you'll fucking love this. Imagine you're playing beer pong, right? Imagine you're playing beer pong, right? And you sat
Benny
there,
rules or Aiden rules?
just fucking regular.
Yeah, thank you.
Not regular rules, all right? Stupid cunt rules. And so you have like right? You have the full fucking like, you have 1 cup left, and you have this full fucking like big barrel of balls, right? And you just fucking throw them all at once, and 1 goes in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
All right. And then you fucking set back. You have 1 shot. You go like that. Bang. You've done it. Right. How many times are you going to be able to replicate the 1 shot, like compared to just not knowing what the fuck happened when you just threw a bucket of balls?
Bro, that's such a good analogy.
You know what I mean? Like, cool. I just gave you a fucking 100 balls, but I don't know how to fucking do that again. You know what I mean? I'm just throwing random shit at you. Like, that's what it's like when you start over queuing, when you start fucking like changing too much, doing too much at once because you're scared that the client thinks, oh fuck, like I'm not getting enough. It's like, no, you're getting what you need.
Shout out Clayton McLean, because I said to him, he's been flying since he started. Like literally first block, PR, like pumping. And I'm thinking to myself, I said to him, I said, mate, this is a fluke. Like there is no way in hell I have done this on purpose. Like I literally just like took what you said, you know, made something generalized, and so I could see how you respond to volume, frequency, you know, all the basics when you first start with someone. And he's just been flying, and I had to admit, I said, mate, I don't know what's going on. I personally, like, I've never seen this happen before. Like, it is a complete fluke. Like, and I need you to understand that. And I think so many coaches if that happens to them, they're going to be like, I got the fucking keys, bro. Like,
me, bro.
I'm the fucking one. You know? Like, it's...
Fuck, bro.
I like, and then the athlete buys in, like, yeah, you've got the fucking keys. You're the fucking man. You know what I mean?
And then they get stuck, and they're just like, fuck.
Yeah, they get stuck, they get hurt, or they
Bro.
they fucking realize that the keys are no longer working, and the athlete and the coach actually doesn't have the keys.
Bro.
Can't.
Literally, But
fucking
like,
funny.
that's what it's about, man. And it just comes back to being open and honest, setting clear boundaries and expectations, and just
100%.
fucking nailing those things and nailing the relationship.
Yeah.
You're done. That's good. Golden.
All right, let's wrap it up there. We've been going for like, I don't know how long. I don't even know.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but we're going to move on to talking about overrated, underrated,
fuck, I forgot about this.
properly rated.
Fuck, I got to remember mine.
Do you?
Can't.
Do you need time? Were you right?
Fuck, I might need 1 minute.
All right, well, do you want me to go first, or is that going to
You
make...
can go first.
I can actually fucking chop this up in the editing.
All right, chop it.
All right.
Chop it. So I don't fucking forget the cut.
Alrighty, so we're going to bring back properly rated, overrated, underrated. Now, we've both thought of separate topics.
Yep.
And you will go first, Benny.
Yep.
And then I will go. But we only answer each other's properly rated, overrated, underrated.
All right.
Okay?
No worries.
But like we can make comments.
We'll have a little comment.
Go.
All right, cool. So my one is having a deep understanding of your program as an athlete.
A deep understanding.
Relatively deep.
Like, am I representing who? Myself?
If you weren't a coach, you're just an athlete. You just lift. That's all you have to do.
Okay. This is so hard because I'm like, I don't want to answer it from like the perspective as like a coach, because if they
a good
don't give a
one, isn't it?
fuck, I love it, bro. Like when they don't care about their program, they're like, yeah, I'll just do whatever. That's the best. I'm gonna
Do it
say
at the same time.
I'll say it, and then you can just comment about it, whether you agree or not. I'm gonna say it is properly rated, just flat line, properly rated, because there are some benefits that you can have when you have like a deep understanding of the program, but there are some downfalls because it depends on the type of person that you are as an athlete, because you can fucking really overthink like a lot of things in a program where it's like, bro, it's not that deep. I think from a technique standpoint, like we can just eliminate that's not included in this conversation.
No.
It's purely just numbers.
Yep.
So I think
It's like variations, volume, intensity.
yeah, knowing like how the program is written and like what sessions should we push and whatnot, that should be understood, because like you don't want to be pushing your secondary days too harder than your primary days. You know what I mean? Like I think that's pretty understandable. Like, would you agree?
Yep.
And then I think on top of that, like what falls under the properly rated part about programming and understanding it is knowing at what point of the macro cycle you're in, like preparing for a competition. Like there's a time and place to like work out and know like and figure out like what works.
Yep.
So you can like have a really good peak. But there's a time and place where it's like, okay, we know what works. We don't have to change anything. Therefore, let's just do the fucking program.
Yep.
And therefore, we don't have to, change any variables.
Yep. No, for sure. I agree with that as well. Yep. And this came about because I had a big conversation with one of my clients today. Shout out, Michael. But basically, like, he was having a conversation with someone in his gym about, like, he kind of has a general understanding of what's going on, but not necessarily like a deep understanding.
Is he a coach or an athlete?
He's an athlete. He just trains. And
right.
So like,
not Michael. I mean the guy you're talking to.
Oh, the guy he was talking to.
Yeah.
I think he might have been a coach, but so it's like Michael was talking to me about like if he thinks it, if I think it's a good idea, like for him to be more invested in like what's going on and having a deeper understanding. And I said to him like, I think you'd be really surprised in just the amount that you actually know just from the communication that we have.
Yeah,
because we're constantly talking about this shit. Like, I said to him as an example, like, if I spoke to you about how your heavy exposure on your secondary day makes the bar feel better on your back on your primary day for a squat, you'd probably turn around and say, yeah, no, it does do that. And like, if I spoke to you about, how your 3 count to the knee variation this block has helped you keep your shoulders more set over the bar, you go, yeah. No, I totally understand that.
And I think you're saying all this stuff in past tense, and I think that's when there should only be a deep understanding. Because, like, when something happens, like you PR, okay, you PR because I believe this PR was a result of these variables. or you didn't PR and you missed a lift. Okay, I believe you missed the lift because of these variables. You know what I mean? And it's all should be past tense. But if you're saying all this stuff at the start of the program where it's like, okay, I expect this day to be the best day of the fucking week.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of just told the athlete, okay, today's the day I fucking loaded up, or today's the day where I expect everything to feel really good.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's important that you're being transparent. You're kind of like, look, we're just going to see what fucking happens.
Literally.
And then we can make a discussion at the end.
Loose hypothesis.
It's called block reviews, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's it. And I think like I had a discussion with him and I kind of made the case about, Aiden came back from IPF Worlds this year and he just said, man, like so many of the athletes at the top just fucking like, they're just like lifting robots, man. Like they don't have this like deep, like technical nuance. They don't have this like super
How's this
rich
for a stat?
understanding. Like
Leah Bavoil, 69 kilo French lifter, obviously like long curly hair. She's quite, obviously you'd know who she is. She does SBD only, no accessories. She benches 7 days a week. That's a stat for you. Like and so many people will be like, holy fuck, like what are you doing that for?
Yep.
But like, she obviously has an understanding of why it works or why she doesn't really care.
Yeah.
She just does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
literally.
yeah.
Your one.
My turn.
Go.
All right.
Okay.
Ready? Invitational meets.
Oh. I'd say properly rated.
Yeah?
At this rate.
Okay.
Yeah. I think in Australia they've been underrated and then they've just been fucking flogged this year.
I agree. They've been
flogged. It's like, bro. Like
we
come on.
Part of the reason why we got kicked out of the APU back in the day was because we ran a flight that wasn't approved, as in like we ran the prime time session.
Yeah.
There's so many other countries and so many other feds are doing it. I'm like, fuck, I really, really want to do it.
Yep.
And we just did it because I just didn't give a fuck. I was like, it's just what I want to do. Like, it's going to push the sport forward. People are going to want to, compete at this meet and like want to actually put it on their calendar every single year.
Yep.
So we just did it. Obviously, we paid the repercussions of it. That's been dealt with in a civil manner. But when it came around to this year, we kind of just did it again because we did it last year. But on reflection, I probably wouldn't have done it because I just think there's too many of them now. You know what I mean?
I think there's so many.
Every
of
meet
them.
has an
it's
invitation.
Like if every meet has a prime time, then no prime time is a prime time.
Yeah.
That's like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just an excuse to just put the strongest lifters of the meet at one time.
I agree.
Like it's nothing, there's nothing like exceptional about it. Like watching like Sheffield or like SBD Rayleigh.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like watching those meets, you're like, holy fuck, there's a bit going on here.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. But like, if you're just having like local meets, which have invitational all the time, not only does it take away from like the experience of the beginner athletes being able to compete alongside these like really elite level lifters and just be like, fuck, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm in the same flight as fucking, so-and-so.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, just, I don't know, like it
You
kind
just
of.
don't want to become a thing where you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
It's like, I fucking love powerlifting. Right?
Yeah.
I love competing. I love the day. It's like the best day ever. It's like fucking Christmas, right? Better than Lego.
Yeah, better than Lego.
But I don't want to be looking to avoid an invitational meet. I just want to be able to just compete. And I think so many people would obviously feel the same way because it just dilutes the product of what it is. You know what I mean? If you're constantly competing for prize money, constantly competing for, being the winner of a competition because you beat all these other high level athletes. Yeah. Like sometimes you just want to compete, and obviously like there are meets out there that do sell out that are non-invitational, but I think they're very hard to come by because the sport is growing so rapidly that like you pretty much have to be on the phone or computer within 5 minutes of the competition selling out.
Yeah.
And you don't want to become to that point where like you can't compete as just like a veteran athlete. When I say veteran, I mean like you've been in the sport. Like your GL's up there. Like you probably get invited to any invitational meet. But I'm of the opinion like moving forward, especially with HPC, I'd just like to just bring back good competition, like powerlifting for everybody, no matter who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then on that topic, I think like this is probably a hot take for the invitationals, but I'm like, if you're trying to make it like a spectacle and a prime time type of thing, make it a prime time thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't include the locals. Is that what you
like,
mean?
no, I mean, just like it needs to be of a standard for like it to be a spectacle. Like, you know what I mean? You can't have like 75 GL, 80 GL lifters in a prime time session.
And that's why I stood so firmly on the 90 GL thing, and I copped a lot of shit for it.
Yeah.
So
you can't, you can't say like, oh, I'm gonna create this like big primetime thing where it's like gonna be such a like involved meet where like the best lifters are gonna come and compete, and then it's just the best lifters that signed up to your comp have been thrown into a primetime. Like, it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, yeah, reach out to them, get the competition on the calendar for them.
Yeah. If you can curate something that's really cool, fucking oath, do an invitational meet.
Yeah.
But if you just rely on the fact that it's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to make it like a bit of a hype word so that people come and compete at my local comp, like
it dilutes it.
yeah,
That's where it's
does.
diluted.
And then like, yeah, it becomes just a repetitive thing that's happening everywhere. And then that's when it becomes less exciting.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I think I First Nations has been promoting invite, but like prime time for quite a while now, and everyone just kind of did it because it just lined up well with the way that nationals used to be later in the year. Like, it would be just the qualifying comp that everyone would do, or showdown. But showdown was never prime time. Showdown was just kind of like this mass meet for everyone to compete in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But next year, like with the formation of the calendar, with how things are now playing out, where nationals is in February for opens, there's a 5-month gap between that and First Nations, which would probably be more appealing to the higher end lifter. So I think it comes down to the placement of the meet throughout the year, like when you think it's good spacing between like nationals, and when the local meet should be. But if like you're holding an invitational that's like 2 months out from nationals, or like a month or 2 months after nationals, like it's a bit silly. You know, like you just got to, as a meet director, you got to just think about like where you're putting the meet, so it actually like makes sense to like invite good athletes that, you know, will present the thing that you want to showcase, and it's got to be special.
Yeah, and
like,
that's what it should be. It should be a showcase. It shouldn't just be something that just like is, I don't know.
Oh,
like,
well.
oh, everyone's doing it, I better fucking do it. Like, no, it's got to be something like big. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're talking about, when I think about invitationals and you think about them like overseas, you think about like the silent worker meet. Like, you think about SPD Rayleigh, think about Sheffield. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that's what
I got
that's
the show.
the
I got the
standard.
showdown idea from. It was called Buck Off Showdown, and it was a USPA meet. John Hack did it. I think it was like 2016. That was the last time it was held, or 2017. And that's where I got the idea of hosting Showdown. Was like, fuck, I want my Showdown meet to look like this. So it was hectic.
Yeah.
Like, you can look up on Instagram. It's called Showdown, USPA or some shit. But like, that was the meet that I tried to replicate. And then I haven't really thought deeply enough, and we'll probably like improve the standard of like First Nations and that invitational at some point next year. But like having it so it's kind of like amazing, whether it's at a different venue or whether it's like, you know, we had a smoke machine.
Yeah. That was
we had like we had smoke machine. Obviously, like we had we had multiple commentators on a live stream. Like, the things were better than the last prime time for First Nations, but I think it just has to be different to the local meet, and it just can't be thrown together and be at the same quality as what a local meet should be. I think Jacob's doing a really good job over in WA with Night of Champions. But I do think that like we could probably all work together as like a federation, I guess, to try and make sure that the product doesn't become too diluted. Otherwise, you feel the way that I feel right now, where it's like I just want to do a fucking normal meet, and not have to stress about, you know, doing something fancy. All right,
cool.
I think to finish on, I think it's good that like you, as a local level athlete, to strive for an invitation.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
like,
it's cool.
That's another thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's a good thing, but it's like at the same time, fucking,
you know, clear criteria would be cool too.
Yes.
Like we see so many times where like athletes can just apply for an invitational meet because they meet the requirements. But like if you're inviting athletes, like it's really like you can't tell them who to.
It can be very like handpicked.
Yeah.
There needs to be some clear, like, you know, you need to achieve this to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like qualifying for nationals.
Like if you think about Sheffield, like you have to be within 5% of the record total, right?
Yep.
And that's pretty clear cut. And then they have the wild card. But again, the wild cards are suited for the people who, like, I don't know, did a local meet, not a national meet, or a regional or an international, where they like get close to the world record. So I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think just having equal opportunities makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and even if they just like make like a criteria, and then they have a list of athletes who have like met that criteria by the time nationals is finished next year, and then you can revisit that entire list and be like, okay, cool. These are the people that we can disperse across 3 special events throughout the year.
Yep.
Let's
100%.
reach out and see which ones they want to do.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Alrighty, that wraps us up. So thank you for listening to episode 33. We'll be back next week. We're going to be recording on a Friday though, Benny, because we have a special guest coming on the show.
Ooh, who's a special guest?
Well, let's just say he's never ever done a podcast with anyone from Australia. I don't think.
That's mad.
Is that a hot take? Is it like,
no, I think that's good.
That's a good take.
I think so. I don't know.
So yeah, tune in next week. We're gonna do some PR work and publicize it and make sure that people are tuning in for that episode. But we're super excited to have a chat with him. I've actually never spoken to him before. We've followed each other for a while now, and I felt pretty fucking cool when he followed me. I won't admit.
Yep.
Will admit, sorry. So yes, tune in next week for that episode. We'll probably try and get it edited and out on Friday as usual.
Yep.
With our regular schedule. But leave a like, comment, subscribe, 5 stars, all that stuff. Benny, always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you very much. See you next week.